through our Diverse Supplier Development Program, or DSDP, have developed entrepreneurs to help scale their business. So our DSDP reflects Accenture's commitment to provide equal access to procurement opportunities to diverse suppliers. We have graduated 165 suppliers from our DSDP program since its inception, 35 from Canada. So as it is right now, we have a program in the US, in Canada, in South Africa, and the UK, with India, Mexico, and Quebec rolling out towards the end of this year. And that's for our DSDP. You can read a lot more about that as well in our corporate citizenship report. So marketplace empowerment. Through membership organizations and the ecosystem platforms, we collaborate with our clients to create a more inclusive and responsive marketplace. So this talks about our commitment and our corporate memberships with CAMC, with WBE, with CGLCC, with We Connect International. We do global memberships. So, in the 18 countries where we have a supply diversity program, we have corporate memberships as well. Accenture, this is what I'm really excited about for our corporate partners out there. Accenture has a supplier diversity and sustainability offering. We have partnered with our client teams to help our clients either start, revamp, expand, or create their own supplier diversity programs. There are really good examples on our website, on our CCR. Again, Hilton is one of them, and Dow is another one. So please go read those. And then the last thing, we obviously do have transparency. In the US, we do about 600 Tier 2 reports every quarter. In Canada, I am happy to announce that our partners, that our corporate partners at the banks are leading the way with Tier 2 reports in Canada, and we are now reporting our Tier 2 spend with 2 of those clients. So I'm just gonna go on until somebody has a question. Roy, if I need to slow down, you let me know. And this is my last slide here. Again, this is our Diverse Supply Development Program. It's an 18 to 24-month program that matches senior Accenture executives or mentors with a diverse supplier. We mentor you for 18 months. You have an assigned mentor who is a managing director and or a senior manager or manager to help you navigate Accenture for those 12 to 18 months or 18 to 24 months. In addition, you come to our offices every quarter and we do workshops, a day and a half workshops that include topics like cybersecurity, business development, sales, procurement, how to respond to RFIs, how to work with the government, artificial intelligence, digital supply chains, everything that we are, taking to our clients to make our clients better, we bring it to you on a, lower scale and give it to you so that you can build your business. I've got a little quote here from one of CAMC's own suppliers. I'm not going to read it, but I'll let it on the screen so you can read it. And this is from Kathy Chang, who is, I believe she was on our last class in Canada, and really took advantage of everything that Accenture had to offer and really took advantage of the workshop. So I encourage you to learn more about this program. If you have any questions, I'm going to leave my email address towards the end of this presentation, or you can always get it from Roy or from anybody else at CAMC. And I'm going to leave you with this. This is where our program is. As you can see, DSDPs in Canada, the UK, South Africa, United States, and with new DSDPs coming up towards the end of this year. That is my super high level quick introduction to Accenture Supply Diversity Program. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Use the resources that I listed previous. And again, I'm here to help and answer any questions after this meeting. I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Zach Robinson, who's going to take you to the real reason that you're here and is digitizing the supply chain. So Zach, over to you.
Great. Thanks, Dora, and thanks, Roy, for the introduction. I'm really excited to be here today and talk with you all about digital supply chain. It's a topic that has been getting a lot of attention these days, And I'm sure various supply chain disruptions have affected the leaders listening today in many different ways. It's also a great time to be thinking about ways to reinvigorate your strategy and operating model in this new, never normal world that we find ourselves in. So as you would have learned from my biography, in Accenture's supply chain practice, and I have over 10 years experience in planning and fulfillment functions, particularly across retail, CPG, and automotive industries. My current focus is helping clients with fulfillment automation strategies to support business growth. Overall, the COVID-19 pandemic has fundamentally reshaped how customers behave and how companies do business. It has rapidly exposed areas of weakness and ignited unexpected impact, most significantly for supply chains. This presents supply chain and operations leaders with a significant opportunity to reimagine and transform tomorrow's supply chains to positively impact business, society, and the planet. You'll see here Accenture's intelligent supply chain framework, and this helps us ensure that when we're partnering with clients to address problems and really drive customer-centric value across the supply chain, that results in overall sustainability and profitability. As part of our supply chain and operations practice, we support our clients in defining new customer experiences, reconfiguring supply chains to address customer requirements in a more flexible way, finding money to fuel growth, and building more resilient supply chains leveraging various digital technologies. You'll see here on the page a few other facts and figures that just give you a better idea on the size and scale of our global practice, as well as some of the areas where we typically do work. So let's jump into the core of the presentation here. So it's without saying that the COVID-19 pandemic is set to drive the largest macroeconomic impact since 2008, and it has disrupted supply chains everywhere. Companies should not expect to resume their typical business as usual after reopening operations, but instead should continue to anticipate difficulties around managing supply, demand, and inventory. Companies will need to be flexible in order to adapt to this changing environment. And it's going to be important to look at this from two key areas of both demand and supply. So if you'll think of some of the recent dynamics that have occurred in the market, there's been very volatile demand, whether it's in terms of volume, you'll see lots of spikes or drops as it relates to particular categories, and certain product categories have actually emerged to have increased demand, whereas some other categories such as electronics or cosmetics may not have had the same demand in recent months. It's also adjusted the customer service model and introduced more flexibility in terms of accepting returns, in terms of waiving delivery fees to service customers in the last mile delivery. It's also resulted in various channel shifts. So there's been a large fall in food service and restaurant businesses, and a lot of companies have had to shift and react to those operational changes to adapt and change their customer focus. From a supply perspective, a lot of companies have had various disruptions as it relates to inventory. And there's been COVID transportation restrictions, whether it's on the water or road. There's been delays coming from Asia, and many companies did not have contingency plans to accurately handle this disruption. You'll see here some facts and figures that outline a large degree of companies that are seeing disruptions and the negative financial and business impacts as a result of this pandemic. And unfortunately, it's had a negative outlook on various growth targets. But we want to reframe this and present it as an opportunity for supply chain leaders to really take advantage of new growth areas and explore new business opportunities that are driven by the supply chain. So if we move on to the next slide, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic has been profound, and it has driven a number of technology and consumer changes. So let's quickly revisit what's shaping the new industry normal as it relates to supply chain, right? So the first is new customer expectations. Right? In today's Amazon era integrated marketplace, consumers expect more personalized offerings, ultra convenience and speed, consistently delivered across all channels and touch points. This requires a lot more intelligence to provide what customers want, what they need, and the agility from a supply chain perspective to constantly adapt and respond fast to these ever-changing demands. Customers are also looking for transparency throughout the value chain to understand the source of products and the methods that are used to develop and manufacture products to ensure that they're ethical and environmentally friendly. Now, supply chains these days can no longer focus solely on the bottom line, as customers are placing increasing importance on sustainability and ethical operations in order to gain their trust and loyalty. New business models are also emerging. The competitive landscape is rapidly changing, and the single mass marketing manufacturing business has been usurped. Today's customers have so many more options to find what they really want, and the new players that have emerged in the market have changed the rules, and traditional businesses need to adapt fast, and new growth requires new business models. But there's a number of new opportunities that this presents, right? Technology has really broken down many barriers to entry across markets, and the technology itself is starting to become more financially available to a growing number of companies. There's been more venture capital that has been invested in across various technologies to level this financial playing field, and new digital natives are shaking the foundation for traditional companies. Trends suggest that over the next 7 years, approximately 50% of the S&P 500 companies will no longer exist. If these trends continue, today's leaders won't be the leaders of tomorrow. So not all this is doom and gloom, right? Incumbents can still compete, but you really need to turn the disruption to your advantage and fully embrace the digital and analytical capabilities that are powering business transformation. So if we move to the next slide, one of the approaches that we're considering here is that you need to evolve from a linear to a dynamic supply chain that is oriented around the customer to drive growth. If you think of the supply chain of yesterday, it was centered as a support function, maybe viewed as a cost center. Today, supply chain is here to drive cost efficiency and is a big driver for customer service. However, we're now thinking of supply chains of tomorrow as a growth enabler to drive competitive differentiation. And this competitive differentiation can be introduced through new capabilities that are empowered by digital technologies, where the supply chain can directly enhance the customer experience, improve a customer's willingness to pay, which thereby grows the business. And if we think of traditional supply chains, many companies have adopted a one-size-fits-all model. And unfortunately, this does not work in the new realities of business today. There's so many different customer segments, and each customer segment has various expectations in terms of cost or responsiveness. And as you know, each of these Service expectations requires distinct supply chain capabilities in order to serve them effectively. So this is going to require you to shift from a one-size-fits-all model to a fit-for-purpose supply chain that targets these unique customer experiences. Traditionally, supply chains also haven't been agile to react quickly to customer changes, and often requires a lot of cross-functional alignment and approvals in order to introduce changes. However, new entrants into the market are much more nimble and are able to react to trends very quickly. So this requires a fundamental change in terms of the resilience of the supply chain to be able to react to both demand and supply factors quickly to ensure business continuity and growth. And traditionally, supply chains have had their own network, built your own internal fleets and assets, and been heavily relied on the infrastructure that you have today. However, in the future, there's a lot of ecosystem partners out there that you can leverage flexible asset-light networks that will allow your supply chain to be more responsive to changing customer and business requirements. And supply chain leaders will need to quickly determine which elements of the partner ecosystem to adopt temporarily and which ones are more permanent. And this will allow you to really deliver on the customer's experience that they're looking for and meet their demands efficiently and profitably. If we shift to the next slide, moving forward, businesses should be looking to introduce intelligent supply chain capabilities. The intelligent supply chain puts customers at the heart of everything. Creating a customized customer experience when, where, and how they want it is ultimately the goal. An intelligent supply chain provides increased visibility of customer needs all the way through the customer experience, and when done correctly, enables growth for companies through new channels and markets. With the less siloed, more agile, flexible workforce and ecosystem, it makes the introduction of new products and services happen more quickly and more efficiently. More connected and convenient products and services become available, which give customers more choice. And this intelligent supply chain uses sustainable and ethical practices as much as possible to gain customer loyalty. And there's 5 key areas where the intelligent supply chain actually works. And the first is through innovating, right? This is using data as an insight generation engine for new products and services. The second is by connecting with external parties for end-to-end integrated planning and execution. The third is configuring, and it's configuring an asset-light ecosystem approach to the supply chain to deliver the customer experience in new, unique microsegments. The fourth is operating, a service-oriented operating model that leverages a hybrid workforce to deliver the customer experience. And the final one is optimizing operations using data, advanced analytics, and performance monitoring, as well as continuous improvement. And this will set up your supply chain and business for the new never normal that is emerging in this post-COVID-19 pandemic world. If we move to the next slide, it has some statistics on what many supply chain leaders are already doing to invest in digital technologies to enable this customer-centric intelligent supply chain. We conducted a study as part of our Future of Supply Chain research, and findings suggest that companies are investing in a variety of different areas. 86% are their ecosystems are built on digital platforms, which enables the sharing of assets and information. 90% are choosing workforce transformation and automating repetitive tasks. 94% of companies are investing in visibility and collaboration tools to improve the working relationships amongst various stakeholders within an organization. 95% are looking to real-time supply chain operations that are enabled by big data, artificial intelligence, and Internet of Things. And 93% work and interact with machines. So there's many different technology options that are available. We'll shift to the next slide to dive into a few of them. So here you'll see a number of these disrupting digital technologies. And I'll spend some time to touch on each of these, and if there are questions, we can dive into it now or wait till the end. If we think of Internet of Things, there's a lot of collection and exchange of data that is possible through connected people, devices, and objects. If we think of a real-life example, you can place an IoT device on a transport truck, have that connected to a platform, and you could have full end-to-end visibility to understand where that transport truck is located as it is on its inbound or outbound routes. From a data science or artificial intelligence perspective, we're in the era of big data. There's many different internal and external data sources, and there's new algorithms from a artificial intelligence as well as machine learning perspective that can help you quickly analyze data sources to uncover actionable insights, so that the people in your organization aren't the ones doing the number crunching and analysis, but rather reviewing findings and insights to make decisions and are focused on more value-added strategic activities. The third here is collaboration, right? With the abundance of availability and visibility of data, as well as new social and collaboration tools available for companies, it really makes it easier for businesses to interact and engage across functions and break down those silos that traditionally existed across supply chain functions. From a mobility perspective, there's many new handheld and hands-free devices that improve the way that people can work. Mobility devices have various apps that can be configured based on business needs and requirements. If we think of many supply chain operations, particularly in distribution center functions, you used to be limited by physical computer points that would be located in set points within your warehouse. And now supervisors have the ability to be mobile and have tablets to access information at their fingertips and make informed decisions, which is very empowering to employees. We think of blockchain, which is a large distributed ledger technology that enables secure information sharing with partners and parties of a network. This has the ability to simplify many different types of transactions, as each part of this network has full visibility to the content being posted and has confidence in the authenticity of the information due to the various controls and mechanisms that are in place. And blockchain can sometimes be a challenging area for supply chain, as I'd say companies typically tend to build walls around their data, right? They trust their data and no one else's. Data tends to be very company-centric, but there's a huge advantage here for supply chain, because when we talk about a shared database, it's used by more than one party. Data is the same across all parties, and it's entered and approved into the blockchain based on defined rules that are agreed up front. Next on the list here is robotics. So there's new technologies that are emerging through robotic solutions that are allowing companies to reevaluate their processes, to determine ways to automate operations to either improve speed to market, reduce operational costs, or drive other benefits in the business. And it's resulted in a new industry term called cobotics, which involves the collaboration between people and robotics as a new way of working with a digital workforce. On here as well, we have security. Right? Digital transformation brings with it heightened risks from lots of people looking to access company data, whether that's hackers or other external parties that are looking to use that data for malicious intents. But there's lots of advanced tools and methods and security procedures enabled through digital tools to safeguard your assets. And it's an important area to consider, especially as we move toward cloud and digital transformations that used to be long and very complex. If you think of a standard ERP implementation many years back, it was a long-standing project and had many stakeholders and a long roadmap. However, new emerging cloud solutions are providing plug-and-play solutions. Can bolt on to an existing ERP or platform solution to drive supply chain improvements. But it also presents an opportunity to look at your capabilities and quickly introduce new solutions to improve or scale operations. So if we move to the next slide, if we think of the transition to some of these digital technologies that I just discussed, it's unfortunately not as simple as just an upgrade of a solution or the introduction of a new tool. It does require a transformational approach, and the key focus that supply chain leaders should be thinking of in this space is the overall supply chain operating model design in terms of how your organization is set up. What capabilities do you have? And what technologies are able to support your operations, as well as, of course, the corresponding business and system design. There's a competitive advantage that companies can develop through the use of these disruptive technologies. And based on the research that we've conducted in the market, companies that understand and have adopted a comprehensive company-wide digital transformation tend to be more profitable than others in their peer set. And this is as a result of unlocking new customer value propositions and improving operational processes. If we move to the next slide, you'll see here it's quite busy slide, but it does provide a good outline of key capabilities to consider within the immediate, short, and medium term across various digital areas. So the one area I wanted to focus on discussing further was the digital workforce. So there's a number of different process automation and standardization being introduced in the medium term. If we think of robotic process automation, or RPA, which is automating consistent and repetitive tasks, as well as new mobile technologies that can empower employees to have information at their fingertips. But there is a new liquid workforce that is emerging in this new operating model. And this liquid workforce can be defined as a workforce that provides a mix of permanent employees with qualified on-demand workers using a virtual talent platform for crowdsourced staffing that can allow you to focus on a specific challenge while not necessarily having, while leveraging, the best abilities of the on-demand workforce. There's a number of new skills that are emerging through this digital transformation. And companies need to upskill their employees in these new areas to be effective in these digital transformations. So if we think of problem-solving capabilities, how to make informed decisions, how to use analytical tools, how to manage data and data governance as a whole, and how to collaborate. And this could be, across functions or collaborating and working with machines and robotics. And it's also, from a workforce perspective, introducing new roles, right? There's value chain architects, end-to-end orchestrators, or network planners, right? If we think of traditional supply chains that may have had a demand planner and a supply planner, when we have intelligent supply chain capabilities that provide an end-to-end visibility, you can actually have a network planner that can look at both demand and supply factors at the same time. There's also new roles as it relates to data scientists and introducing new machine learning and automated augmented intelligence capabilities. The other area that I'll touch on here is on the digital supply chain. So there's a number of fulfillment functions that are looking to be automated. If you think of a conventional distribution center that might be focused, more on labor and people operations, there's a number of opportunities to drive efficiencies in that space by leveraging material handling automation as well as robotics processes. And this allows the supply chain to meet the customer expectations of increased delivery times, increased number of delivery times, improved speed to market, and improved cost. As we think of the shift to e-commerce platforms, and in the COVID environment where some retail nodes might not actually be open, companies need to have efficient capabilities to service customers on an individual basis. And in the interest of time, I might not deep dive further on this slide. So if we move forward onto the next slide, there is lots of inherent value in introducing a customer-centric supply chain model. It requires a shift in the approach of the value chain, part of the overall supply chain process model. So as discussed earlier, rather than a linear sequential approach across the value chain, we're framing it as a continuous circular model across functions that's empowered by digital enablers that we discussed previously. And there's 4 key value drivers that are inherent as part of this intelligent digital supply chain. And the first is that it's very insights driven. So there's advanced tools and algorithms that can perform the data analysis and provide actionable insights. There's, on the trajectory, there's potentially automation that could actually that could execute against those insights automatically, that would only require a central supply chain control center to review results and action on any alerts that are outside of tolerable thresholds. There's the second piece is end-to-end transparency and integration. So digital technologies, when applied and introduced across end-to-end functions, across your partners in your ecosystem, will provide you with visibility and transparency to your operations. And this is inherently valuable as it will allow you an ability to react and adapt your operations. There's also a lot of opportunities from a value perspective on continuous innovation and improvement. There's new tools as it relates to digital artificial intelligence, machine learning, those algorithms can be enhanced through experiences in your business operations and with customers to tailor and optimize the design to meet the needs of those customer groups. And there's going to be a continuous improvements and innovation in terms of how people, systems, and machines interact and get used to working together in this new digital era. And finally, from an operational adaptability perspective, there's digital capabilities to identify, understand, and react to disruptions, right? There's various planning tools that are available to allow companies to run scenario planning, conduct what's if analysis, and really do simulation planning to help inform decisions and make sure that the desired business outcomes are mitigated as a result of disruption. So there's a lot of different value drivers from digital technology. However, the shift to adopt a digital core, if we move to the next slide, you really need to rethink about the way that your supply chain is designed and operated. This transformation isn't easy. It's a big change, and it does require a fundamental shift in the organizational culture to embrace and adopt technology tools and processes. So if we were to look at it across those kind of three lenses of people, process, and technology, starting first from a people perspective, some of the success factors in this area would be to reimagine the workforce and the requirement of new skills and new set of roles for humans to partner with machines and leverage new technologies. And the human capacity that is freed up by digitization or automation can drive bottom line savings, but at the same time, those people can be redeployed to more strategically value-added activities and free them up from the administrative non-value-added tasks that they probably don't like doing in the first place. And a data-led workforce comprised of internal, external, and automated talent ultimately will perform and execute faster and will allow more agility from an end-to-end perspective. From a process perspective, the key success factors to keep in mind would be a digital supply chain requires applying technology to enable new types of products and processes rather than just simply enhancing ones. And with a more agile and intelligent supply chain, the workforce will be focused towards ever-growing value-add activities, not performing the analysis, but reviewing findings to make decisions. From a technology perspective, digital disruptors are changing the way work is being done, augmenting humans and improving safety. There's, in this COVID environment that we're operating in, there's a number of technology tools that could be introduced to improve workplace safety and have employees feel comfortable with returning back to work, whether that's through contact tracing apps, various solutions to alert people if they are coming in close contact with people, just to allow them to be mindful of the distance and proximity that they are to others. There's enabled technology that'll support efficiency, cost control, decision making, and ultimately inform your strategy with improved speed, scope, and agility. And these underlying platforms will allow you to support both business and product processes, and creates the link between your IT and operations technology like never before. So in summary, if we were to think of this as 3 key points, I'd say the first is that your customer expectations are changing, and today's supply chains cannot service customers using a one-size-fits-all model. The second is that the role of future supply chains will evolve into a growth engine and competitive differentiator. And the third is that in order to meet customer expectations and deliver growth, the supply chain must evolve using a new framework that's enabled by digital technologies. And so I would challenge you all as you look in the upcoming months, years, as you shape your supply chain strategy and roadmap. There's 6 key steps that I would want you to consider and anchor on as part of this roadmap development. The first would be defining your customer experience, right? What differentiates you? What experience does your customer want? And then second would be to determine your customer and value chain segmentation. How is your supply chain going to meet the needs and expectations of those various customer segments and experiences? Then the third would be, once you understand your customer and the various customer segments, is you would create your supply chain architecture. Right? How do you envision your supply chain being structured? Then the fourth would be, what are those supporting technology tools as well as data strategy to support that customer experience and supply chain architecture? And the fifth is leveraging that technology base that you envision. What are some possible ecosystem partners and strategies that you could go to market for in order to develop that asset-light supply chain model and be very reactive to demands from the market? And then once you know your customer, you know your segments, you've defined your architecture, you know your technology, data strategy, and you have some partners, craft that value case and build out that roadmap over the next, over the short term to identify some quick wins, as well as in your medium and long-term initiatives that will form part of that strategy. So that's the core content that I wanted to go through with the group today. I tried to ensure there was time for questions. I appreciate it's a very deep topic and many different angles that could have gone down, but hopefully that gives a good overview of what to be thinking about as you approach a digital supply chain transformation. But happy to, over the next, it looks like we have about 10 minutes left, to talk through any questions that you may have.
All right. Thank you so much, Zach, for your presentation thus far. And as Zach was saying, there are time for questions right now, either within our general chat or the Q&A. It was a very deep topic. I'm glad that we have this recorded because I can refer to this again myself. But if you have any questions, now would be the time to ask them. One thing that I was sort of wondering was if you could give a little bit more detail into the cobotics, because you brought up that term, and it's honestly the first time I've ever seen it before.
Yeah, so that's a great question, and a new area that is emerging in the market. So if we think of various industries, there has been various exposure to automation and robotics. So dating back many, many years, you know, in the car industry, automotive industry, people worked alongside robots and automation solutions in assembly lines to develop vehicles. So there's always been this collaboration between people and robotic solutions. However, the application is now starting to become present in a number of other industries outside of just traditional manufacturing. And the reason for this is that there has been, there's kind of two factors. One is there's been a large increase in the labor cost. And think of minimum wage going up. We think of just the attractiveness potentially of some supply chain business areas that people might not want to work in. If I think of a distribution center that might have refrigerated or frozen operations, it's not as attractive to work in that type of format. So alongside with rising labor challenges, both in terms of the talent pool as well as the interest in certain functions, there's also been a diminishing contributing factor from a technology perspective. So the cost to introduce new robotics functions has gone down. There's more players in the market. There's more solutions out there. So it's becoming more affordable for companies. And now the application of robotics is across many different areas, and particularly in the fulfillment space. So there's solutions that are being introduced to support the picking, packing, and shipping of products from a distribution center to a customer's home. We're no longer relying on people to go into a warehouse and fetch a product, pack it itself, and ship it out. It's now all being handled through conveyors, sorters, or even robotic technologies that are able to navigate in a warehouse and bring a product to a person, right? A person could be working in a very ergonomic location and site, and all they have to do is assemble product that robots bring to them. And it improves business operations, it improves employee work experience from having a much easier job, and is supported through some interesting and innovative robotic and technology solutions.
Okay. So in this case, it's not necessarily that with cobotics, it's not saying that robotics are going to reduce the workforce, but it will change what the workforce looks like in that case, correct?
Correct. It's people are doing different things. And there's activities that can be automated that are very much repetitive and administrative in nature, but it doesn't mean that your overall workforce footprint would necessarily go down, right? Your people will just be redeployed and will work in different ways alongside robotics and focus more on value-added strategic activities.
Lovely. So I do see a question here, and I'll read it just verbatim. We are in the transformation to robotics and AI in logistics and quality area. What are your opinion for that niche market growth post-COVID-19?
Yes, that's another great question. And in a post-COVID environment, the acceleration towards robotic solutions is, or sorry, the shift to robotic solutions is only going to accelerate in a post-COVID environment, especially when we think of how companies are servicing their customers. right? There's CPG companies that we're having conversations with that are looking to go direct to customers, right? Typically, CPG companies rely on a retail node to service customers. COVID disrupted that entire model because many retail stores were closed. And that had a large disruption to CPG companies. So as a result, CPG companies are exploring options to go direct to customers, and the reintroduction of the milk man, milk woman that was part of our history many years ago. It's a real possibility that we might transition to that type of environment in the future should there continue to be disruptions from this pandemic. And there's a lot of solutions that are out there that companies are considering in the logistics space related to robotics, related to automation, because their facilities closed down, right? They weren't able to operate their supply chain in this environment. However, if you have automated solutions, it can run on its own. You don't necessarily, you might need a control tower of people to oversee and manage those operations, but they aren't the ones executing. So it provides an opportunity for companies to stabilize their operations and continue to meet the needs of their customers in a pandemic-like situation. So I hope that helps address the question. Any further clarifications, happy to dive deeper.
Yeah, honestly, I think that does answer the question really well. Also, it's really nice to see suppliers and companies thinking about post-COVID-19, even when right now, honestly, it doesn't seem like there's an end in sight. Dora, do you have anything to add, just as we are going to begin our conclusion soon?
No, other than thank you, Zach. That was incredible. I hope everybody found it as informative as I did. Again, there's a lot of information on accenture.com. Not everything that Zach talked about is there, but a lot of it is there. So just make sure you check it out. There's some really practical action items that are listed with every point of view or with every research or paper that Accenture puts out. So you get to read the research, and then you got some really practical action items that you can take for your company. So thank you, Kamsi. Thank you, Roy. Thank you to everybody that attended. Thank you, Zach. Again, that was amazing. And we are here to continue to support you through these difficult times. If there are any other questions, Roy has my contact information. Feel free to connect with me through Roy. And then I can also pass along any further questions to Zach. So with that, thank you everybody for your time, and thank you, Kamsi, for having us.
No problem. Now, if we can just go over to the next slide, we'll be concluding just in a moment. So our next webinar will be on August 4th. That month gap that you might notice for July is actually going to be for our procurement fair. But for August 4th, we will be discussing staffing and recruitment trends and managing talent during the COVID-19 outbreak. For more information or for registration for that webinar, you can contact myself or Vandana. Our emails are listed there. Or you can visit camc.ca for more info. And on the next slide, we'd once again like to thank EY, Flexingate, Magna, Nutrien, Prasad Employment Law, and RBC for sponsoring the Business Intelligence webinar series. I'd also like to thank once again Dora Silva and Zachary Robinson from Accenture for joining us today. Like Dora said, if you have any other questions or feedback you'd like me to pass along over to them, I'd be happy to do so. And I hope you have a wonderful Tuesday. Have a lovely day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Oh, and finally, sorry, our Diversity Procurement Fair is July 21st to 23rd, and it's 50% off all registrations. This is your last week to sign up for the meeting marketplace as well. It is your chance to meet one-on-one with our corporate members and have approximately 15 minutes to do so. It is an entirely virtual event, so you can have that experience all within your own office or living room. All right, everyone. Hope you have a fantastic Tuesday.
Thank you.